Welcome Taurus, to your in-depth monthly horoscope for May 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing the event chart right at the start of the month. Now there's a big pack of energy in your sign which has been augmented just at the end of April by Venus, your ruler. Venus moving into your sign may have seen you draw a line in the sand around certain involvements or connections, not necessarily romantic, could even be financial, a financial involvement. But Pluto does challenge Venus for the first 3 days of this month. Pluto is a heavyweight influence. It's very much to do with power. And if you are wanting to be much more creative and express your individuality, Pluto's squaring Venus could be inhibiting. Perhaps if you work in a big organisation and you're wanting to be more creative, you may be reminded of the need to adhere to what's expected from a corporate viewpoint, which actually could really cramp your style. And the reason for that, and the reason this energy has been bubbling up more recently, is of course since the last 2 days of March, peaking on the 21st of April, Jupiter and Uranus reached a high point in their conjunction in your sign. Uranus has been shaking things up for you full time since March 2019, Jupiter for the last year, and really invoking a desire to find the most authentic version of yourself. But recently you've run into some heavy weather when it comes to the astrology. There's been such a collective in your 12th house, including Mercury's retrograde, the North Node, Chiron, and previous to that Venus, that maybe you became much more conscious of who you couldn't rely upon, and therefore you may have withdrawn somewhat. And there may still be a sense of sensitivity as you come into this month, as you really come to terms with some of the things that unfolded in April. So what to do? Well, the Sun is going to give you a greater sense of vitality, but later on the first day of this month, he too is challenged by a planet in Aquarius, and that is the Moon. So the quarter moon for the first week of this month does again evoke this potential of you feeling a little bit conflicted of how you're going to connect to the wider world. It doesn't have to be through your work or professional goals and aims. It could be through your local community. Somehow or another, you may not feel that you're quite being received in the way you want. And all that Aries energy that was washing around, some of it is still in play, asking questions at a more psychological level. So it's hard to be in the moment, which is what first house energy is about, with Venus, with the Sun, with Jupiter and Uranus in your sign, continuing within 3 degrees the first 9 days of this month. But there's an added dimension to all of this. It could be incredibly positive. It may be potentially somewhat challenging. On the very last day of last month, Mars arrived in its home sign of Aries. Now it's forging a sensational link to Pluto as this month begins. If you've got contacts with people from your past, old connections, people you worked really successfully with, they could be in touch soon, and you could get the green light on something that's really important to you. But I have to be truthful, Mars moving through the 12th house, as it will through to halfway through June, is one of astrology's toughest transitions. What it tends to do is rake up stuff that we thought we dealt with. But of course you've had quite a lot of exposure recently to more sensitive energies with all those vibes in your 12th house. So Mars here in its angle to Pluto can be radically positive and give you huge willpower, but perhaps if you're prepared to work behind the scenes. Whereas you can see from the start of the month, Pluto and the Moon in some ways are seeing you seek out recognition and acknowledgement. So it just depends on your situation. There is an irony with Pluto in the 10th house. As much as people who have it natally often end up in a position of prominence, sometimes they're very reluctant about being in the limelight. Maybe that's going to be true of you, because overall I think what you're yearning for is to be more creative, more in touch with that stylized part of your nature, which really loves the arts, showcasing your flair. All of those things can unfold as this month goes on, but you may have to accept that some of the sensitive strands or the separations with certain people, and it doesn't have to be romantic, that have occurred of late may still be something that's bubbling away on the back burner as well. But there are going to be some people who are very much in your corner, Taurus. And that's borne out by the midpoint between the sun and the moon right at the start of the month, which for you is in house 11. That's your connections to others. And that also forges a beautiful alliance with Jupiter and also Uranus. So the people who do get your progressive approach, who can see what you're trying to achieve, could really buy into you in quite a significant way. But there may be quite a clear divergence. Some people are making way, some people are coming in, or you're going to reclaim your agency by just accepting you can't please all of the people all of the time. And if you really are a bohemian person who wants to really invest in those talents, then if you have a little bit of a delay before you really get the recognition that you feel you deserve, so be it, because it's a process. And for you, the most important thing is being in touch with what's truly rightful for you. But if you're someone who's more of a people pleaser, likes to be more connected to others, it may be painful that there has been some kind of change around the people who are connected to you. But that brings us through to the second of the month. Pluto slams on the brakes. When the big outer planets do go through their yearly annual retrogrades, it can have quite the impact, but it can be quite subtle. For you, it is about your connection to the world, particularly through to the 2nd of September. Pluto's retrograde in your 10th house until then, and then inverts into house 9. You could find yourself through the autumn fall months, or in the spring months if you're in the southern hemisphere, revisiting or relearning some skills, going on a course, speaking to someone who can give you some more profound insights. But between now and then, if you're not quite sure what to do about your professional situation, that can be a big part of the equation. Perhaps all the energy in Aries has been you contemplating yourself, bringing something to a close that's been going on a very long time. And for you, it feels like an almost natural process of letting go. If that's the case, then that's absolutely ideal. But that brings us to the new moon in your sign on the 8th. And what a new moon it is. The moon is exalted in your zodiac sign. That means it ascends there. So it's very comfortable in your sign, but it's also forging a very safe angle to Saturn. Saturn gets a bad rap, but certainly over the last year, it probably has been making you much more conscious of the people who are not such good folks to have around you. But also it's been testing your long-term plan. Here, you can rejuvenate your individual idea, but make it work for the longer term. So this is a very, very positive new moon. It's also pretty close to Uranus. There is a sense of change about you. And even though naturally and historically you've been someone who's really appreciated the degree of stability, I think you're recognizing that sometimes the more we try to cling on, the worse it gets. And life just at times does make way around us. And if we can just be more accepting of that, it's less painful. But on the 13th, Mercury ends its post-retrograde shadow. So if you have felt that there's been some insincerity around you, or somebody's not been in touch as much as they could have been, you're going to get your reward, because on the 15th, Mercury arrives in your sign, giving you a greater sense of certainty, but it does clash with Pluto. So last month you had on the 19th, the Sun clashing with Pluto, the 29th through to the start of this month, Venus, your ruler, and now you're getting Mercury. So it's a similar thing. It's a test between what you want to do for yourself and what someone else may feel you should do. The thing with Mercury and Pluto is it can see quite trenchant views, so people can be quite forceful in trying to assert their opinion. Just be prepared for that. But then that sees a developing aspect, which is probably one of the best of the whole year. And I'm really excited for this for you. I've really been excited since Jupiter entered your sign last May, because I knew once Venus caught up with Jupiter, your ruler, that for you particularly, this would be a very sweet event. Now, first of all, the Sun moves into your second house on the 20th. If you have really been putting the hours in and applying yourself, an improvement in your financial situation, your sense of foundations and physical security. But then on the 23rd, exactly, Venus and Jupiter come into alliance. But it builds up from the 21st, goes on through to the 24th, and it can be luck central, particularly for those Taurus people who've really been determined to follow their own path, and especially when it comes to the creative sphere. If you are someone who is happier in a bigger environment, working for other people, you may feel a glorious uplift. For you, it may be more to do with your interest in fashion or the trends in music. But that's not exclusive to you. It could be for any Taurus person, of course. But I feel that you can feel particularly gorgeous. So if you have gone through some painful stuff in April with people moving out of your situation who you perhaps didn't expect, there could be other people now really beating up after your door. And if you are single and you want a greater involvement or connection, your sex appeal can really be very high. But also, you can luck out when it comes to your talent. It's important to emphasize that. But that brings us to later on the 23rd, when we have the full moon. For you, this particular lunar axis goes between the 2nd and the 8th houses. But Venus, your ruler, is ticking to the end of your sign, and also on the 23rd moves into your second house. Another reason to be optimistic about finances. Now, full moons can often bring to the surface challenges, things that haven't quite worked out as well as we would hope. But for you, I feel there could be something to really celebrate on this one, because having your ruler in the mix, but also Pluto influencing things in a very positive way, it had already been angling to the Sun brilliantly. And if you have made a transition, got a new job, you can really start to have a time of enjoyment. Also on the 25th, Jupiter moves out of your sign. Jupiter comes into a trine with Pluto, which starts from the 26th, goes on to the 11th of June, but peaks on the 3rd of June. And that too can be terrific. If you are looking for a new job, the chances are it will happen right at the end of this month or right at the start of June. So that's something professionally to really look forward to. But if you are someone who's stuck to what you really want to do, this could be you reaching new people with your business, your ideas, your talent, and really you could find people are absolutely mesmerized by the quality of your ideas and the way that you promote yourself. So a very, very positive end to what at times could be somewhat of a challenging month for you as you work through all the different themes that are going on. At the end of the day, all we can do in life really is be true to ourselves. And that's been the story for Uranus for you. And particularly in that high point last month of the 21st of April, but you still got a flavour of that this month, particularly to your new moon, but you can also see things starting to stabilise a little bit. So that then feeds into that other part of your nature, your fixed nature, which does really appreciate knowing where you stand. So by the end of this month, a big transition is starting to shape up with some genuine, quite amazing, quite frankly, results. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Taurus. I wish you all the best for May. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did now. Please click or tap the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you'll get an alert from YouTube.